from our station, spinning 3,900 feet above the watery sphere.
I can see for miles and miles. I can see for miles and miles. I can see for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles.
This is Monitor Duty.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Wednesday. It's time for Monitor Duty. This is Reese signing on. See, that would be better. I should come up with something like that to say. I am circling a little lower this week. I am away from the home base, as it were, across the fruited plain, learning all kinds of new things.
What would your altitude be now?
I'd have to look it up here. But yeah, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing well. I didn't have much to to talk about. Sorry. We're just staying home. It's very, very cold here. It's like 0 degrees in Minnesota. So, and quite frankly, I had a show earlier today, one of my regular shows. My question for discussion in the chat was, should I leave Minnesota? Because I just can't seem to stay out of the news. It's just bad here. And then you throw in 0 degrees, and it's like, I really should think about moving away from here. What about you guys?
Well, I will admit I am dreading this stream.
Oh, why?
Because I know inevitably this is going to spark a Batman versus Superman debate. And honestly, I would rather argue with a leftist about trans rights.
Actually, this stream I don't think is actually going to lead there, because in this comic that we read today, which was it Dark Knight over Metropolis, they just work together the whole time. Like there's really no Batman v Superman. It's Batman and Superman being mostly chill and working together and solving a mystery.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that is, we didn't really get to intro it. Yeah, it's Dark Knight over Metropolis. This is the first time that Batman and Superman worked together since the relaunch of Superman in '86.
Yeah, the Man of Steel, which
the Man of Steel relaunch.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this which I thought which was surprising to me, because we'll get into it, but this story directly resolves threads hanging from Man of Steel. And I read Man of Steel, and I hadn't read a whole bunch after that, and I was like, oh, that's what happened to so and so.
Right.
Yeah. This ties in with the famous Superman #2, where this computer scientist creates a computer that puts all the data together on Clark Kent and Superman and says, "Oh, Superman's Clark Kent," and Lex says, "No, this stupid computer, get rid of it, and you're fired," because he says there's no way that Superman could lower himself to be a regular person. That would be ridiculous, because he can't comprehend it. Yep. And so that was a great story, and this is a follow-up to that, because right before this story, that disgraced scientist had pulled out Lex Luthor's kryptonite ring and shown it to Clark just to prove that he was Superman. But it was a private thing. She just encountered him in private and then left. And interesting to see that it took him a couple days to recover from that meager encounter with kryptonite. And these days, he's like, flying around while bathing in kryptonite sometimes. So it's been a long time. It's really changed the way that he is weak to it. Since this story that was 40 years ago.
I would also add that kryptonite's effects have always been subservient to the dramatic tension the author wants to create. Yeah. So if you really want to milk the tension and make Superman be in trouble, it instantly neutralizes him. If you're trying to make it so that do something else with the story, he seemingly can do quite a lot while under its influence. But right. That's neither here nor there. But we're talking Superman, Dark Knight over Metropolis. Reese, did you figure out your You dropped
Yeah,
there for a
I was
second.
just trying to get the aspect ratio. We could get enough of the image to get some of the big pages and go for their thing. Jim
I
says,
just read Tim's.
Yeah, Jim says, are we getting back to Tom King's Wonder Woman?
Tuner.
No. When is shortly after I become the head of the Mars project.
You know what? Actually, I'll put it this way. It depends how bad chat wants it. You know what I mean? If you can get a bunch, you get us a bunch more viewers, we'll definitely take another look at that.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure that that Jim accounts for about 50% of them right now.
Yeah. Jim's regular. Appreciate that. I guess Jim, if you really, really want to see me suffer, I don't want to do that show, but I mean, if that's what you want, asking ironically. Okay.
You know what you can do? You can put up a Patreon. And if he really wants it bad enough,
we'll do a vote. We'll do a vote between Tom King's Wonder Woman Blankets 2 and
Wait, was there a Blankets 2?
It's just a joke.
I was like, how?
Okay.
What new levels of hell are you seeing?
It's twice as long.
So, if I can just quickly, I don't want to get too far off the story. Just to very quickly recap for anybody who has not read the Man of Steel and the early John Byrne stories. What happened was that Ma Kent was putting together a booklet on Superman. It was just basically a scrapbook of all the things that Clark Kent was off doing before he became Superman. And then it turns into a record of all the things that he has done as Superman. She puts it all in one photo album, and that fell into the hands of Lex Luthor, who didn't know where it had come from. And then Superman got it from him, didn't know where it came from. He gave it to Batman, who he had only met, supposedly, he had only met him like before when they were doing a case together during Man of Steel. And then he summoned him, and this is when he meets the second Robin, and this is before he's redone into a brat. It's like he's just a gog. He's like, I'm meeting Superman, wow. But the Jason Todd Robin meets Superman, but then when Batman comes back having investigated, he says, the only thing I figured out from this book is that you are Clark Kent. And he hands it to Superman, and Superman says, oh, that's interesting, Mr. Wayne. And he flies off. And so that's how they learned each other. That's all that's happened between Superman and Batman, supposedly, up till now. But then, over the years, they backdated all the Justice League stuff, so they would have known each other for years before this. But chronologically, this is supposed to be basically this third or fourth meeting of Superman and Batman, is this story, Dark Knight over Metropolis.
In this rebooted continuity post-crisis, because obviously Silver Age, they were all in each other's business for years. Yeah. So this is one of friends. So this is what's interesting is that we've had so many other alternate universes and reboots since then that for a lot of people this is a big deal, right? We're gonna reset. We're gonna Marv Wolfman, is going to simplify DC by making everything have a shared continuity, and we're going to kind of restart everything, and we're going to reintroduce these characters in the more Bronze Age kind of register, as it were. So it has a different tone as we introduce these characters. We're not introducing them in a Silver Age milieu. So it's very, what's interesting about this story. It's very much like everything else, obviously, but it's very much of its own time, and because of that, it has very interesting qualities that we can, I think, talk about. So
one of the really interesting things about this, first of all, let's hit the chat just a little bit. Dave Ashanovich says maybe kryptonite varies, kind of like how gold has carats. Yeah, that makes sense. That the levels of purities or impurities within kryptonite, as it's a naturally occurring substance, that would make a lot of sense. So you have 24 karat kryptonite, 17 karat kryptonite, whatever.
Well, back when this was written, this was the only kryptonite in the entire world because it had embedded itself in the rocket as it was taking off from the explosion of Krypton. And that was supposed to be one of the key differences, is that unlike the old Bronze Age where every thug had a sack full of kryptonite to hit Superman with, kryptonite could not be found anywhere else on Earth. There was one chunk. It was in Metallo, because the scientists had taken it off of the ship and used it to power Metallo. And then Lex Luthor got that and took part of it to make his ring, and he had the rest of it too. So Lex Luthor had all of the kryptonite that's on the Earth, and there wasn't supposed to be any other kryptonite.
And this is also the situation where, like, by this time, Lex Luthor had gotten the cancer, so he had the robotic hands. So he was always wearing the Michael Jackson glove.
Yeah.
So currently in DC, there's so much kryptonite on Earth that you can actually there's a series called Superman Unlimited that I'm reading, and like a whole like meteor of it like hit Earth, and so like there's an entire like parallel economy people have with just like making stuff with kryptonite. So it's like they
back to the Bronze Age.
they flooded the market with it.
Yeah, that's a poor. I think that is a poor editorial decision. But
it's not bad, because they decided to give Superman not to derail two things too far, but they decided to come up with a Superman got exposed to so much of it that he has like a temporary like immunity he can turn on for a few moments at a time, which is kind of interesting. He turns gold. In practice, it's actually it leads to some interesting storytelling opportunities, because as opposed to kryptonite just like instantly creating an impassable barrier, Superman now has a window to work around when he's exposed, because after his immunity happens, his powers crash. So it creates interesting opportunities where it's like, hey, he's going to, that's funny. He gets exposed, he gets a temporary immunity, but then he has like this window where it's like, okay, I only have like 5 minutes to like, do what I need to do before my power is going to like tank, and I'm going to have to recover afterwards. And I'm like, it actually leads to some decent, I think, some storytelling opportunities with it.
I'm just going to say, somebody is a gamer.
Well, back in the 70s, when I think it was Denny O'Neil was given the job of trying to revitalize Superman, and that was when he had him leave the Daily Planet and become a newscaster. Because the best thing to do with Superman is have him have to be on a TV show at 6 o'clock, yeah, but in that same issue, all the kryptonite on Earth was destroyed. It was turned into lead, basically, or something like that. It was like all the kryptonite was transformed. There was no kryptonite left on Earth because of some weird explosion, a kryptonite experiment that they were doing.
I was reading about that this week. I got off on a tear reading about Denny O'Neil, and I read about that, and I was like, I didn't know you wrote Superman. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Well, I remember why, because I've been reading a bunch of Daredevil stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I decided to pull all of my Daredevil stuff out of my to read pile that I haven't ever gotten to yet. So,
but every now and then, DC's editors try to get a handle on this, and like, okay, he needs kryptonite sometimes, but it's such a story crutch. Right. It's such a crutch. Everybody pulls out a chunk of kryptonite that he goes against. There's kryptonite everywhere. So they tried to get rid of it, and then it comes back, and then they get rid of it. Like this one, they say, no, there's only one chunk on Earth. And then it comes, here, now we're drowning in it. Okay.
And it's so frustrating to me, right? I was just having this conversation with a coworker earlier today, that what people get wrong is Superman doesn't need to have the physical threats. Right. And this story is a perfect example, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about the physicality that is Superman's issue. It's that Superman can't be everywhere and do everything. Right. Right. And even though he's super, he can't be everywhere and do everything. Right. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, to be fair, like, the creator of Superman felt that he needed to put this in the stories, because after the amount of just him dominating in the Golden Age, it was like, I gotta make something happen, or else the story's gonna get dull and no one's gonna read them.
Right. What I'm saying is you're right. I mean, like having a hang up for a story, that's fine. Having that be a plot device is fine, but you don't need like the constant one-upsmanship. We need to get a bigger and a tougher puncher, somebody who's okay. Superman can fight against Mongol. Oh, okay, that's not tough enough. Superman can fight against whatever and. Oh, and we're going to give Lex Luthor superpowers. And okay, yeah, that's the ticket.
It's like,
I like all that stuff, though.
well, yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily bad in and of itself.
All right.
The idea is that people feel the need. My problem isn't that
Sure.
those things exist. It's that people invent them because they feel they need to have Superman have a physical match, right? Instead of like,
Yeah, in theory, I see what you mean. Like, as someone who writes a character with in a similar vein, I have had to walk this line myself with Omega Girl, where I have not yet introduced an element yet. Hint, hint, hint. That's going to be, the thing that causes that kind of challenge. And so I've had to do exactly what you said, which is create different situational challenges.
And also it has to do with like Superman is like, he's the main character, but he's not like the sole thing, right? Like Superman's fondness for Cat, in the story we're about to talk about, Superman's fondness for Cat Grant is every bit of a motivator and a limiter on what Superman can do, right?
Right.
I don't know if it's every bit, but it definitely is one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. That's Well, I mean,
I'm quibbling.
I'm trying to think if I was overbroad with my statement, but
you're fine. You're good. You're good. But we should probably let Hutch. We should let Hutch do a. I mean, I can synopsize, but Hutch did a great job last time.
Before we get into the synopsis, the one thing I want to point out a little bit about the production and release of this comic, something that I hadn't realized. Like, I knew the story existed. I'd read one of the issues on here back in like the 90s, right? My cousin had it in his like under his bed box of garage sale comics, and when he decided he was over comics, he mailed them all to me. Just a whole mess of stuff. And so I'd read it, but I didn't really understand it or get into it, and hadn't read the other parts of it. I didn't realize. I knew it was across different titles. I didn't realize these were all Superman titles. I thought one of them was a Batman book. And I didn't realize that it had 3 different art and writing teams on it. Because this was weekly. The other thing I didn't realize. So this was a 3 weeks. Because like the production schedule they were doing, where 1 week was Action Comics, the next week was Adventures of Superman, the next week was
Superman.
Superman, right.
Yeah.
And so they actually released this, so it came out 3 weeks in a row. And I'm just like, so I'm reading the thing and I'm flipping through the pages and I'm like, make sure to come by next week for Action Comics, blah, 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 blah.
This is right around the era, the Dan Jurgens era, is where they started going from week to week, so that instead of Superman being a self-contained book, and Action is a self-contained book, which is kind of how John Byrne had it. Action was its own thing, and Superman was its own thing. Instead, they started just doing the same ongoing soap opera, going from one book to the other. And so, the author who starts the story may not finish the story, or he finds a way to have his story pick up after 3 weeks of Superman doing something else. And then he revisits so there will be an ongoing Superman plot, but it's not in Action Comics, but he has to do something else for 2 weeks, and then he's back to that. And they started doing the triangles where you could tell, here's Superman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for 1990, 1991. Yeah.
I'll be right back.
It was the only way to keep track of these books. So this did cross over, and it was kind of amazing at the time. It was like, oh wow, they're going to do this. It's kind of a unique thing, and now it's just blasé. They do that all the time. But what happens is that Superman is tracking down. He's keeping an eye on Cat Grant, who is supposed to testify in a court case, and meanwhile, Batman is tracking down a. How does it start? It's like a dead body. There's a person,
just dead vagrant.
A dead vagrant who has a kryptonite ring, and there's also a dead body that has a beaten up face, and they don't have a clue who it is. And that turns out to be that lady scientist who had the ring. And so Batman and Superman start working together, trying to trace down this mystery of these dead people and where this kryptonite ring came from. By the way, right there on that first page, it talks about this cat calls column right there. It talks about how they have gone back and digitally re-edited with new digital endings so that he says, frankly, my dear, I don't give a flying, and it's torn off. But they've re-edited the end of Gone with the Wind. Or not, I guess that's not the end, that's the middle. But anyway, the
Can we
famous
talk
I don't
about
give a
for
damn.
a second this whole opening, scene actually. Partly because I talked last week about how I'm so fed up with just seeing the same old Batman origin story constantly, and kudos to them in the way they very cleverly used the Batman origin to instead lead in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Well, it's not quite. It's mimicking it though, right? Because that's not like those aren't Bruce Wayne's parents, but they go through
Right.
all the motions
Yeah.
of
Right.
that.
Let's
They're
go down
Batman.
this dark alley. Yeah.
But then they
Let's get on
use
this
it
alley.
instead to create, and then of course the twist that I totally did not see coming, totally walked into that, expertly done because of the colors they're using. We naturally expect Batman's colors to be blue and black, right? And we never even think about the fact we're not even seeing the ears every time we see him, right? This was actually done extraordinarily well.
It was the only quibble I've got is that they did go a little. It's a quibble. I think it's a very interesting sequence because they do the whole setup where a male and female figure with a kid go down the alleyway, and it looks like right after the movie showing. It's very anyone who's familiar with Batman is like, oh, I know where we're going
You're
with this.
already being reminded Batman
Yeah.
is here, right?
Right, and then instead of Batman, it's Superman who actually descends down. But he crouches in a couple points where it's like Superman doesn't crouch like that. That's clearly them just trying to trick you. But I can forgive that. The other
this
thing,
panel right
Why
here.
does he have ears though? Why does he have
He
bat
doesn't.
ears?
I think it's waves of his
It's
hair.
his
and
hair.
stuff,
It's supposed
but-
to be his hair swishing. I realized that. I went back and looked at this, but it clearly looks like they are bent awkward man type
Yeah.
ears.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, is awkward man in this book too? That is legit.
and look how the folds of the cape hide that there's no,
Scallops.
or even make it look like there are supposed to be scallops, right? It's all really good. And then I think to myself, the whole time I was thinking to myself, would Batman actually wait? Right? And I'm like, so when it turns out to be Superman, it's like, oh, you know what? That does make a lot more sense. Okay. I see what you did there.
So
And
and
the
here, a couple things I wanted to talk about really quick, though. I wanted to point out that the artist and writer, right, pencil artist is Jerry Ordway, and writing, right? And I did not, and I once again, that was one of the things I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, Jerry Ordway is involved in this. I really like his flair. And so seeing him and Yankee on these, I thought was really, really appreciated on that. The other thing I wanted to point out too, really quick, is the fellow who's following them along is Slam Bradley, right?
Yep.
Which was another character created by Siegel and Schuster.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And I
have no
love
idea
Slam
who it
Bradley.
is. So at first, I thought it was the gangsters actually following them.
Yeah. Yep.
He's from
I
Action
also-
Comics #1, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, he's another character
been a
from
while.
Action Comics #1.
He looks
Been a while
very
since
much
I-
like Dick Tracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was designed in the mold of Dick Tracy. And Brubaker used him as a PI in Catwoman as well. And I thought I really liked his take with the character. But yeah, I like Slam. I think it's cool that he's incorporated.
And
of course,
Hutch, you're gonna have to help me out. I have no idea who. What is it? Gangbusters? is his name?
Gangbuster.
Gangbuster. Yeah, Jose Delgado is Gangbuster. And he's just a street level vigilante who operates in Metropolis, and he's mostly going after the gangs, the street gangs from the bad part of town that Jose lives in. He had actually been incapacitated, he had been, I think he'd been escorting her, he'd had a date with Lois. And during the date with Lois, he actually got crippled by a supervillain who accosted them. And he was actually up and about because Lex Luthor invented a way to like, for even though he was crippled, he was able to like move all his joints, special remote control things or something like that. And they tricked Lex Luthor to like release him because he was using him as a puppet. It's a big long backstory, but anyway, he's had a lot going on. I don't really know what happened to him after he was like. This was the era where he was Gangbuster. Superman became Gangbuster after he killed the 3 Kryptonians, and he was having mental issues where he was dressing as Gangbuster without knowing it, and then he went off into space to try to resolve that. So that's the last I ever saw of Gangbuster.
I remember Gangbuster from Death and Return of Superman, because you had the whole he was part of the broader Metropolis cast. And I remember him and Guardian, because they were the 2 like pretty much non-powered superheroes who were like trying to keep Metropolis clean and also trying to fill the void of Superman's death. And their heart is totally in it, and they just do not have the level of power necessary to fill a hole that big.
And I know Gangbuster's shown up every once and again in stuff. I don't think he's been as big a player as he was during this time period.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know,
I do want to talk about that. Actually, that's actually a point I wanted to bring up.
One of the things that I didn't know that I found out in reading this is that at this point his secret identity is public.
I didn't know that. Huh.
And I was just like, or at least it's known to the players involved, because they openly talk about it. And Intergang knows it. That's what it's like.
Jerry Ordway actually said that the reason they created Gangbuster was because Guardian wasn't available to be used at the time.
Oh, okay. All right, that
really?
tracks. The 2 of them are so similar; they kind of overlap.
But I love Gangbuster. Like his look.
Yeah.
I like his attitude. I think he's underutilized, honestly.
All right, so looking at this last panel, once again, they did it to me. It was right under my nose, and I didn't see it until just now.
Oh, the invisible guy?
Right?
That is Ordway. That is
incredibly well done.
That is some excellent artwork. The invisible effect
is right there in front of you.
Really, that is very well done.
Look at this. Look at this panel. Look at this thing at the top of the page. It's just great. How he blends in
with the brick, specifically the how he blends in with the brick effect is just is marvelous.
At the very first, I was actually wondering if he was coming through the wall. Like he was like somehow part of it or something. Yeah.
I think it's wonderful, and this whole sequence is great. And then the idea that he uses the buttery popcorn to stick to him so they could see him.
And this line was funny, and pray that she's the shorter of the 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry about that, dear.
So, and he catches him with the kick there. I just thought it was great, wonderful stuff. So. And then Superman's introduced, of course. We're not going to go page by page on it, but here, this is another great effect. Uses Superman's powers. He can find him because you can see his heart. He can just X-ray vision and know that walls don't have hearts.
Yeah,
I love in situations like this the writer just needs to pick which way is Superman going to solve the problem, because he's got about like 6 ways at minimum. I could use my super hearing to hear the heartbeat. I could just do ice breath and freeze him over. I can use my X-ray vision to see him, and those are just the nice ones. The nice ways to solve the problem. So.
Yeah, just use the heat vision until something screams.
Right, yeah, that's we get into the mean territory. But
actually, would that be light? Would it bend around?
I will show a little later how that.
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Oh,
not at the intensity of Clark's
dear! Now we actually have to ask: what is Superman's heat vision? Is it actually a laser, or is it something else?
Actually, at this time, it was telekinetic. What did it say? Telekinetic speed up. Salak defined it in Action Comics when they met the Green Lantern Corps. He said he's using telekinesis to speed up the atoms in the object he's looking at. That's how it works. But then, and that's why his eyes just glowed. You didn't see the rays of heat vision in the first several years of the John Byrne era. What's that?
So it really was vision.
Well, for that writer, I don't know if that's actually stayed the.
Yeah, but it was there was like It was a long time before they said that his heat beams were so hot that it actually made visible beams, which was unusual for him. And now you see it all the time. That's just how nobody stuck with John Byrne's way of showing the heat vision, is what I'm
It's the
saying.
same way that most lasers are actually invisible, right? But you got to show them in film. Now, I want to bring attention to one line. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say here at the end, the gangster saying, Intergang never said anything, never said I'd have to go one-on-one with Superman. Talk about it being unprepared.
It's Metropolis.
Thank you! Did Intergang ever mention what city you were living in?
I want to take a second to talk about Intergang, just really briefly. Because I have such mixed feelings about Intergang, and I'll bet you can guess why. At least Cartoonicus, I think, knows why.
Because it's Apocalypse?
Yes. It's just like, it's such a cool idea, and I love it so much, but I really just don't like the Apocalypse angle to it at all. It doesn't make any sort of sense.
Right. Why is Apocalypse involved in financing small crimes, bank robberies and stuff like that?
Is the god of a planet, right? And he's at bitter, desperate war with his opposite number out there in space with the Allfather.
I believe it was not Darkseid. It was actually Desaad pretending to be Darkseid.
That doesn't make it any better.
No, not more of this.
I think it makes it a little better.
Yeah,
it makes it a little
okay.
better.
It makes it better in the fact that why would Darkseid be involved? It makes it better in that way.
It is better because it is a side project that Desaad is doing just as a lark or as extra credit or as maybe this will pay off or something like that. But it's not. This is not a master plan by Darkseid because that makes no sense.
So the other thing I got to mention,
if it's like Desaad's ant farm,
this is
if
lackey.
That was explained. I guess I could let that slide.
This is a lackey on Apocalypse who is just taking some Apocalyptian tech and having fun with it, giving it to people and causing havoc and enjoying the results.
I'm not super bothered. Yeah, I'm not super bothered. I'm not.
He loves pain. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not super bothered by the Apocalypse connection, especially since the Fourth World Apocalypse stuff is so ersatz to begin with, including Darkseid. Over time he's become more and more of this, embodiment of a god, demigod, and everything else, and a giant. But in his earlier appearances, the way Kirby drew him was much more of the scientist vibe. He was very Doctor Doom-esque, including the sort of neener, you can't get me kind of a thing. And it was less about the fact that I think he was going to go mono a mono, which is what they've done with him much more recently, but more of he was a schemer. And so some of the stuff I've read of these earlier, this is something that would be more up his alley because he's a wicked man who likes to do wicked things. And
I just don't like the Fourth World being involved.
I get it. I just for the audience's sake, I just think it's interesting because that character has had a very interesting, I think, arc of development.
I would actually point out that when you see how Lex Luthor is portrayed in this 3-part series, it's kind of a shock compared to how he's been portrayed since about the year 2000, where he's in the Justice League cartoon, they go with he's like one of the smartest men on Earth. That he is so smart that he could actually go in through the source wall and come out when nobody else can.
Well, that's because he was paired with Brainiac, though. He had Brainiac in his head. They give a lore reason. It's not just that he's smart. He had.
Okay, but even so, they really amp up the what a super genius he is. He is a super genius, but again, he is such a. I mean, he's a guy who completely dismissed the idea that Superman would be Clark Kent because he's like, nah, Superman wouldn't do that. He has very obvious failings and flaws, whereas the way he's been portrayed in the book that we were covering last year, he's just one of the smartest people on the earth. He's way 10 steps ahead of you in anything that you have come up with as a plan. That's kind of tiresome, but it's hard to write geniuses,
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah. I will say this version is one that when Byrne did it, they clearly were taking cues from, I think, Gene Hackman's rendition from the
Mhm.
film, and they were
Mhm.
leaning into the mogul, the business mogul. I'm in a suit and I'm a businessman, as well as being into the science. And this reminds me of the Metal Men story,
Mhm.
that the conversation we had about that.
Yeah.
What I loved about Lex in this story is they gave him a little bit of a character, in that, and I liked seeing this. It's nice when a villain is not just flanderized into their badness.
Mhm.
And to see Lex be this very business-like and a businessman, but he doesn't want to owe. He has a little code of honor, and we get to
Mhm.
see that in this
I mean,
story.
yeah. Did
Yes.
anyone expect him to save somebody else's life?
No.
Yeah, but
Well, and it
the
was
reason
well,
why
yeah.
is because he doesn't want to owe anyone anything. But so it's still him being a bit selfish. But I
Did
Yeah.
he
loved
make that decision in point, 0.03
yeah
seconds though?
but
Well, it's because
what I
it's part
love
of his character, right?
yeah
That's like
what I
okay.
love though is that it establishes something that we ended up that you see in All-Star Superman, which is the fact that Lex thinks much better of Clark Kent than he thinks of Superman. And so the idea that the villain actually likes one side of the
Oh,
identity, and the fact
Mhm.
he kind of likes Clark,
Yeah.
but like that's a nice angle. It's
It's the
rich
Flash Thompson
storytelling.
effect.
A bit, yeah. So I liked seeing that here.
So Jim points out that Detective Comics #1 is the first
Is-
appearance of Slam Bradley. I knew it was
Detective
one of them.
#1. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that makes.
So
'Cause I
before
think,
Batman.
go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, before
Yeah.
Batman. Yep.
Hmm.
Also, that Gangbusters was a 1940s or 50s DC comic, along with Mr. District Attorney.
Hmm.
which
I think
have-
that comic from the 40s or 50s based on the radio show though,
I'm not
because
sure.
that's where the term gangbusters came from. It had this theme song that just came bum, 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 and people said it came on like gangbusters. That's where the expression comes from.
Oh,
Is that gangbusters comes on and it's just it hits you with a big theme song. Which I've never heard, so I don't know what it sounds like, but
Yeah,
that is
so-
where the term comes from.
and almost finally, Jim puts me on my place, reminding me that the Intergang was a part of the New Gods original, Kirby's original work on that, and so I should stop kvetching. And
Yeah, I remember that. It was like there's this whole infamous story where Darkseid is trying to ruin Superman's reputation by filming a compromising video with him and Barda, and it's like, this
Yeah.
is not the Darkseid that we tend to see in modern era, but this is part of.
That is not Darkseid who did that. That was Sleaze, an agent
Yes, I didn't think it was
of
Dark.
Darkseid, and Darkseid actually alerted Mr. Miracle to the existence of this porno tape by bringing it. He brings him a VHS tape.
But you see what I mean? Like the fact that like the New Gods are involved in this level of like human.
petty human
Yeah.
nonsense.
Right? Yeah. Like
It's
whereas they get more abstracted as you go.
Yeah.
And Isaac's comment that it is ego. Lex just can't understand somebody being humble, which I think
Yeah.
is fair.
Yeah.
I think it's fair. And it's
Okay.
I was gonna say I think it's especially true in this continuity because Lex has worked hard to become Lex, right? Like
Yeah.
he's an old man. He has done his time. He has, he's killed people for his goals, right? He everything he believes he is this Randian, self-made man where he owes no one anything,
Mhm.
and he's willing to do evil if it counts for his own glory because it's part of him earning it. So
Yeah. If you read that Superman #2, that story, which I reread, and it was like more troubling than I remember at the time because Lex actually like pushes this lady scientist who's just she's saying, "Hey, I made this computer." And he's like, "Man, you'll have dinner with me, right?" And he just shoves her into being a sexual partner she doesn't want to be. And then when she disappoints him, he shoves her aside and dismisses her and is like, and rip this computer part, destroy it. It's obviously junk and you're fired. And it's like, it's so the way he just disposes of people's lives, even if he doesn't kill them, it's so callous. And yet he has this honor that, because Clark saved him, he, it's hard sometimes to, think, well, hey, this guy kind of has a heart, but no, he really is a piece of crap. He's not totally 100%. He has some, he'll surprise you, but he's still not a good person.
Oh, no. Yeah. It's just nice to have,
I know that was never in doubt. I'm just
okay.
Yeah.
It's nice to have some dimension, right? Because like gives some level of complexity. Because it was like, oh, hey, he's capable of doing a good thing. Like he's still bad, and but like because he has a little code there. And like I said, Lex can often be portrayed as either way too sympathetic or sometimes so irredeemably awful that it's comical.
Well,
so
this is so interesting too, because he's not redeemable here, but he's also not without some level of Aristotelian virtues, right?
Yeah,
virtues in the abstract
decency.
sense, right?
Yeah, the fact that he actually puts his life at risk to save him, jumps into danger, is what is surprising. He says, "I owe you." You expect him to later owe him a favor or something in some way, but no, he actually takes action to save his life, and that's interesting. And it tells Superman, okay, he doesn't know I'm Superman, or he wouldn't have done this for me, and he would have known I was not in danger. So that's interesting. It is a way to get several points across to Superman, but and also surprise him that Lex would do that, because Superman is surprised by that. But
so one of the other things I want to point out about this book that I just really, really enjoy, and I want to get you guys' take on it. Throughout these 3 books, for the openings, there's intergang memos, and then throughout the books, there's news clippings that kind of presage what we're about to see in each of these scenes. Not necessarily each of the scenes, but throughout the scenes. I love this. I love the intertextuality. It makes the world feel lived in. It keys you into previous events in comics that you haven't read yet.
Yeah.
As I don't know that you necessarily want this in every book always, but in terms of this being a contained 3-part story, I really loved this. What did you guys think about that device?
I wasn't crazy about it, because there's some things that shouldn't even be a news article that nevertheless are because they need to be. And it's like it talks about how Clark Kent is receiving the award because of his undercover story, which was assisted by Lois Lane and the gossip columnist Cat Grant, of all people. And it's like, well, just dismiss the the value of Cat Grant's input on this. It's like, who's writing this?
Well, her article is called Cat Calls.
Yeah.
I mean, her
her
this
column.
This is
column. Yeah.
I find this to be incredibly of its time. So we're dealing with 1990 here, and I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. In some ways, I think it's a good thing, but it's very much it's very Watchmen-esque.
Yes.
And since this comes afterwards, I think that there was some people took notes on the sort of intertextuality of Watchmen, and I felt, if anything, I think this is where you took a good note. It was like, hey, it was kind of cool when you took that sort of like, intertextual, multimedia aspect and made the world feel more real. We could do that in Superman. We could just, crib from those notes and make it because that was very well received and made the world feel very lived in.
And it seems appropriate to Superman, yeah?
With journalism, yeah, definitely. It's thematic. So I think I would much rather people learn those lessons from Watchmen than learn some of the other lessons that people seemed really hell-bent on learning, which is we gotta deconstruct everything. So hey, take some style notes from more as opposed to thematic ones. So that's fine.
Yeah. Although using news to comment on things, that's also like in The Dark Knight, where the newscasters are always talking about what's going on in the world.
So both, yeah. But the Dark Knight version was very much the talking TV heads. It being on sheets of paper was found artifacts. That's straight out of Watchmen.
Well, and my a fondness for it probably stems from this is the era when I started reading comics, right? I mean, it was typically Batman. I had not read this particular thing, but that kind of thing showed up in the back matter for trade paperbacks, and all that kind of stuff. There would be letters, or birthday cards that were reprinted as part of the story, and so those would be kind of that kind of intermedia perspective is definitely part of my formative comic book experience. So that's probably part of why I found it so effective as well.
Yeah, you do wonder why are they ripped in such a way that they don't have complete sentences, and like I said, it cut across that whole I don't give a fly, it's sort of tore right across, so you can only kind of make out the sentence. I don't know why. It's not like these are clippings from Ma Kent's book or anything, because she would be cutting them up
Could it be
precisely.
from Batman's?
What's that?
Could it be Batman's notes?
Possibly. It doesn't really have an explanation. It's just it's just a storytelling.
My
Right, yeah, I don't think it does.
assumption is simply that this is a way of not having to write the entire article.
That's part of it, but it also makes it it makes in a way I think you can make a case for the fact that like each of these fragments on the page is a piece of the story. It's not film, right? You're not seeing all the moments contiguously. You're getting cut pieces in a collage, and so this is just adding in in essence, it's a narrator. It's a narrator who's basically assembling those pieces, and one of the things I liked about the story in its construction is that it's very clear without the narrator having to basically introduce himself Dickensian style and say, oh dear reader, that kind of a thing. What you get is instead the narrator is essentially speaking to you in narration through the clippings.
Yep.
And so it's like, I'm going to highlight this clipping of dead woman right after we mentioned Superman having a run-in with a mysterious woman, and your brain goes, I bet you there's a connection between those two things, which ends up being the case.
Yeah.
And so like it is very much essentially the voice of the narrator speaking through the news clippings without basically becoming like Stan Lee, a character in the narration, or which is fine. There's it's just a different technique for communicating their narration. It's a much more passive rather than active way.
And it's also the meagerest details. It's only like the bare minimum that you would possibly need for the framing for what you're about to see.
Which makes you do more.
Looking for. So it's,
right, which makes you do a little more work in putting it together like a police procedural show, which is the structure of this is very much in the vein of like police procedural.
Right, and that's one of the other things I wanted to specifically hit on too. And one of the things I think is great about the story is that like Batman is putting all of these pieces together. Right, we don't see Batman yet, but as we get on, that's the situation. So we have kind of before he's even introduced in the narrative, the detective concept is building itself in there through this epistolatory sort of structure, and so you as the reader get to participate in all of this in a way that you don't that you wouldn't necessarily in a regular Superman story. Even though Superman stories and news investigations are investigations, there is some crossover there.
Yes, it's a nice structural conceit.
Yeah,
which go ahead.
Which points to the other thing that I really, really appreciate about it is like I was talking earlier about how one of the big aspects I like about the story is that it gives Superman's limitations not based upon his physical might, but based upon his knowledge. So the reader knows so much more about what's going on than Superman does.
Yeah.
And so you're putting the pieces together as you're reading it, and you're like, oh man, how's Clark ever going to learn this? Oh man, how's...
I should mention that if you read Action 653, I think it said, where she confronted him with the ring, she stumbles away, like not sure what to do. And as she's walking along, some hands come out of an alley and grab her, and you hear a terrible blood-curdling scream, and basically she ends up murdered. Because, of course, she knows the Superman. She's a woman who knows the superhero's identity, and she has to be gotten rid of.
Right.
But not through anything that the hero does.
Yeah, she doomed herself.
I do love that Batman says, "Oh, interesting. So she knew your identity. I'm going to assume you didn't do this. That you're not the kind of person who would get rid of her."
Yeah.
But it is funny that they don't know each other well. It's like just for a second he kind of entertains the idea, obviously, even to dismiss it. Thought that was funny. The
Batman trusts no one.
yeah.
Trust but verify.
Yeah, I have to say before we get any further, rereading this 1990 comic, it just made me feel it reads so differently than modern comics. For there's supporting characters that aren't superheroes. Not everybody that they deal with is a superhero. It to the point that when dealing with one other superhero, Batman is an oddity, whereas everybody else in here is the inspector, Slam Bradley, Gangbuster. There's room for a supporting cast, and there's time spent on Cat Grant and her kid and things like that. Modern superhero comics don't have time for any of that, and I miss it. So just that really came back in rereading this. That it was like, oh yeah,
Well,
they used to have supporting characters.
There's all of these subplot things that are going on in reference to these longer stories that aren't part of this story, but they're clues to that meta story. But nothing. Didn't feel like anything felt rushed, right? It was like there weren't the overburdening of certain aspects at the sake of the pace. It just brought you along and keyed this little piece in and moved on to the next piece. And so you've got your main story, but these other like subtext stories that are going to be brought up in other books and in other weeks are out there. So you have this, experience, but you're not. But it's still, it's still digestible, and it's not rushed, and it's not like we were one of our I think we all kind of agreed on looking at Holy Terror last week. Batman Holy Terror was that there were definite pieces of it where the writer had us strapped to a chair and stuck a funnel in our mouth and just poured the story in, right?
Yeah.
And this doesn't feel. I didn't feel like this felt like that at all.
So this is where I was actually I was literally going to make the point Hutch just made, so I just might as well mention it. So a couple of my related thoughts. This is a very interesting artifact of its time, partially because, and I like a lot of things about this story. I think my main complaint is that I think it's a little underwhelming overall. But that's only in, it's there's not a big supervillain fight at the end. It's just them kind of solving a procedural mystery and working together. But even it being a little underwhelming, I think is a thing to praise, because I think it not every note in a musical piece. I'm going to really talk out of ignorance here because I definitely don't know anything about music. But I do know that not every single moment in a musical composition can be the crescendo. If every note is the crescendo note, you don't really have. You just have noise. You just have bang, 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 bang.
I don't know.
When will the bass drop? When will the bass drop?
Right. So
I think John Williams might disagree with you on that.
The point, not even there. But like the point is you have to have beats. You have to have pauses. You have to. And in a story, not every moment can be the climax. You can't have a story that's all climaxes. And unfortunately. And this is, I'm not even blaming anyone for this. This is not a conspiracy. This is, like I said, I think some of this is just indicative of taste and culture over time and how things develop in society and culture. But there's been this trend to really focus on how much money you make when you have a big bombastic climax. I think, is it 2 years? I think after this, you get Death and Return of Superman, and after that, I think it's arguable to say that the superhero industry is never the same, and they chase the high that they because Death of Superman was a cultural landmark and sold like gangbusters, haha, and so after that. It becomes, I think, a trend to get less and less and fewer of the stories that had slower beats to them, And because you need to constantly be chasing the next big high, the next big event that gets everyone super invested and excited, and everyone's got to buy 12 alternate covers for it, because we have to, they're businesses, they have to make money. I get that. But the unfortunate downside is the fact that you don't get these moments as much. And as Hutch said, I'm currently reading several DC series, Superman specifically focused, but some Justice League and Justice JSA. And I really want to like Justice League Unlimited, and I do, the current run, but I don't like it as much as I hoped I would. And one of the reasons why is because they nothing breathes. Every 5 seconds, the multiverse is in danger.
Yep.
And when all of, and I actually have some, I'm going to save this for later, but I actually have a cultural theory I want to bring to the mind for why I think that is. But when the reality is in danger every other issue, you can't have a story focused on guys in an alley, and you can't have Guardian and Gangbuster be like the featured hero of the week.
Yeah.
Who are like, well, I'm going to help out with this like murder of like 2 people, and we're going to get kind of invested for like, and this is my other minor complaint, but I do think the story, I think it's a little long. It's like 3 issues to do like one murder mystery. But again, even with that criticism, I still think there's something to praise, because we've gone so far in the opposite direction now, where like every story is about, you don't get the cast of civilians as much, because you have to have a cast of just other superheroes, and so you lose touch with that side of the experience. And the superhero is definitely meant to be a dualistic piece of media. And then it does, because you don't have those beats where it's like, hey, let's just solve a murder mystery for an issue or so. It's like everything has just got to be, not just even the world in danger. It's like, the multiverse, all of reality, all of history is ending today, and then tomorrow all of history will also be ending.
Yeah.
And you don't get, and so all that to say, it's very interesting to read Dark Knight over Metropolis, and I do encourage reading it because I do think it's solid. And it's also interesting to think about the fact that I don't think you could sell this story today. In a way, I think you could sell it to some people, but pitching it past DC editorial into the comic book shops, it would never get made.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting to think
they
about.
They really need to rename the company from DC.
They still have detective stories. Like there's Batman still solving some detective stories, but my broader point is still stands, which is the fact that it's
almost as if giving half your characters the powers of the Greek Olympians was a bad idea.
No, that's not the problem.
Yeah, I have to say, I bought this off the stands at the time, and it's not a world-shaking story. It's okay. When you said you wanted to review this one, I'm like, why? It's just they this is the search for the kryptonite ring. I remember that. It was interesting having Batman show up, but it's not there's actually more accomplished than I thought, because also this is about the testifying that puts Morgan Edge in prison. I believe that ends here. She actually does testify. It ends with him.
He gets convicted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a
big, the denouement.
That's a story that was growing for a long time. And it was interesting because Cat Grant actually dated Morgan just to investigate his company. She actually dated Morgan Edge, and they were saying, do you go that far for a story? And that was, nowadays they wouldn't even talk about that. It's like it's surprisingly adult, and yet this was a comic where they still say blazes instead of hell. It's from a time where the Comics Code Authority ruled, and yet this still seems like a very intelligent book aimed at adults and teenagers. It's not a little kid's book.
Right.
And so I like this era. I like this era so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is not a huge Batman Superman crossover. It really
It's
isn't.
not. Yeah, it's not
just
trying
there's
to
a-
be. Yeah,
There's
and
a
that's
payoff to a story that involved both of them. Yeah.
Well, and
Right,
so
right.
here's the ticket. We're talking about like this is shortly on the forward wake of Death of Superman. 2
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
That was 92. I looked it up. I had to remind myself because I keep thinking it was later than that.
I got
But
it right.
it was 92. So 2 years after this story with Death of Superman.
Right.
And it just I read so many comics back then. I guess I didn't realize how short a time that really was.
Mhm.
But
That'd still be like 24 issues at minimum, and if you have 3 Superman comics, that's like
There's a lot of Superman stories
that's
in
actually
that time.
yeah. What's interesting is like in 3 years and 3 Superman titles, you can actually get quite a lot of, especially during this time when they cram more into those panels. Like
Yep.
it feels like it was so much because it kind of was.
well, this is just after Action Hero Comics Weekly too. So I mean that was
Right. Yeah.
lots and
Then
lots
you're
of Superman books. But and you know, and then you also have this is the beginning of this book also talks about like not the beginning, but this is the beginning of the solidification of Lois and Clark as a romantic item. So you're 6-9 months away from his reveal to be Superman. And like what a world changing thing that was in the comics. I remember sitting at the co-op and opening up that book and seeing like that her reaction to his revelation that he's Superman and just like being blown away as like 11-year-old Reese, just like, oh my God, they just opened up the whole world.
Yeah. And now I hate it. Now I wish they'd never done it because they undid the love triangle between two people aspect. It's like you look at Superman books and what they had been ever since they were created. It's like there was always Lois and Lana competing for Superman, Clark having to hide his identity, and it's like all those aspects of Superman are kind of gone. There's because it's just assumed that he's supposed to end up with Lois, and it's like it wasn't 100% thing. People would say, well, maybe he should be with this person, maybe he should be with that person instead of Lois. Lois is kind of a busybody and a bothersome person who's always intruding into everything and getting in trouble. And
he should have ended up with the mermaid.
Yeah. Lori Lamaris. Yeah.
So anyway,
go ahead.
That's a different theme, but anyway, but it was a lot of story happening all at once, a very, very short order.
Yeah.
And
Isaac, from the chat, Isaac Larkin says that Lex will do any good deed if he could take his attacks right off. Cartoonicus, you were going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, you suddenly reminded me, I can't remember what page it is that I realized this, but can we give a shout out to the unsung superhero of DC Comics? And that is Alfred Pennyworth. The man who has the ability to do anything, be anything, have every possible skill, and somehow all the time in the world to get all this stuff done.
Yeah.
The guy is a one-man army.
This is true.
That's fair.
Absolutely. So, back in Gotham City, on to the story. Batman stops a robbery. In this robbery, he finds the cigar box full of a ticket from Metropolis, a Greyhound bus there, and Lex's ring, kryptonite ring. He doesn't know what's up with it. And then this guy, so then this dude ends up just dying.
We might need to go. We might need to pick up the pace a little bit. We're never going to make it.
Yeah, we got to get through it real quick.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Lex discovers that the ring is missing. I don't remember. I can't remember what it was. For some reason, he goes to look at it. There's a lapse. They found there was a lapse in the security.
That's right. There's a security. Security
he goes
problem.
to discover what it is and finds out that his ring was stolen by the one gal who's now dead. And there's Morgan Edge.
There's Chiller and Shockwave.
Yes.
Chiller is from Booster Gold and Shockwave is from Blue Devil.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Dan Jurgens, who's writing this, it's a chance for him to bring back his villain. I think this might be the last time you see him. He's like a shape changer. I don't know why he's so hideous.
Or why he's
How that
called
pays
Chiller.
Yeah.
Oh, hi there, Supreme Commander Smopes. I didn't see you there.
I was gonna say he looks like he definitely looks like the chameleon from Marvel for some reason.
Well, that's ironic considering he literally uses that word.
Isn't it funny that they're both pasty white?
Yes.
That's just a coincidence, I think.
My brain immediately thought Royal Flush Gang for some reason. I don't
What's
know
the
why.
color? It's the white and red.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's
Yeah,
Alfred.
here's where it started.
Ah.
Does anyone find it awkward to see Batman sipping tea?
No.
It's like, man,
Oh,
he
okay.
seems casual right now.
He's
Go
Bruce.
pack up our bags while I sit here and drink tea.
He's Bruce Wayne. He's just the Batman is
also-
a persona on top.
So
Yeah.
also
Actually,
No,
that's
Bruce Wayne is the persona on top.
That's not. See, that is also something that I think has been. That I think that is something that has been put on the character over time as well.
yeah,
Fair enough, but this is
that was not a
1990.
thing prior to 86.
Mhm.
Yeah,
This is
I was going to say I
1990.
think this is something that
I've always
characters
said
become.
that Batman in the Batcave is actually a third personality. He is not the silly public persona of Bruce Wayne. He is also not the scary monster that patrols the alleyways. He is probably the closest to being Bruce Wayne's actual personality. And so, yeah, he is. So both of them are sort of put-ons adopted by Bruce Wayne. So
Yeah, I think that's the accurate thing. Like when Bruce is talking to Dick or
Mhm.
Tim in the cave, he's who Bruce really is.
yeah,
But that means that Bruce would be the kind of guy to, sit around lounging while the man who's the closest thing to a father that he have is waiting on him hand and foot.
That's
yeah.
that's
I
yeah,
didn't
he's
like
his
that.
butler.
That's noblesse oblige. Like
Yeah, he's an aristocrat.
like he's
I will say that one of the interesting. We should definitely maybe take a look at this sometime. But when you, an excellent way of teasing out the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Batman is to watch the animated series and hear the inflection that. Oh crap! Who's the guy? Who's the voice actor
Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
for Bruce?
Oh, for Alfred. I'm sorry. I
Sorry,
didn't know
I was talking
who
about Bruce.
we were
Yeah,
talking
no.
Kevin Conroy.
Yeah. So what Kevin Conroy does with the voice, and actually, it actually leads into the tragedy of that whole series for the animated universe. But if you listen to how Bruce sounds to like Robin, because again, as Reese said, how he talks to Robin is a good gauge of what Bruce would really be, because he's like, I'm being a real to you, and you hear that he has like a Bruce voice that he uses in public and a Bruce voice he uses with Robin. It's like, oh hey, that's actually who Bruce really is. And then Batman's more gravelly voice is a persona. But when they get to the like fifth, or was it fourth or fifth season of Batman, Bruce's voice and Batman's voice become the same, which actually tells you a narrative that Batman and Bruce are becoming darker and not becoming lighter over time. And that the way the whole series ends with Batman Beyond is him fully having that gravelly, awful, cynic side to him. So like I said, there's actually a tragedy there. But the point is that there's a very interesting conversation to have, not just about Batman, but about Superman and which character, the superhero or the civilian identity, which one of them is really them, or what degree they feel towards that. And there's some very interesting stories that we could read that actually start to answer that question.
Well, and I think part of that comes to the idea too, especially looking at it from the Bruce perspective. I mentioned noblesse oblige earlier, but the fact of the matter is that the suit that Bruce swims in is that where as a public figure he has a duty to the public, to be the kind, generous, rich guy, right? And so he's expected to behave in certain ways in public, and so the just like a movie star, you expect him to be kind and to accept people, to take selfies and sign casts and all that kind of stuff. And if they don't, well, they're kind of being a jerk. But I wouldn't want to be accosted at the Walmart just to talk to people I don't know.
One of the things I really did not like about Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns is that it is what established Alfred being the butler back when Bruce was a kid. That was never part of the mythology up until that point. And when he did that, they changed the entire in continuity DCU to be that he was the guy who basically raised him. And then it has a whole bunch of problems. It's not only basically this should be Batman's dad, but also he should have gotten Bruce Wayne into some therapy, and the whole thing of, you're out every night doing this. It's like, yeah, that's on you. That's kind of on you. You were the one who should have raised him to deal with his fragile psyche.
Fair enough.
I don't like his being the parent of Alfred.
There are certain things I do like about it, including the one that, as long as Batman is going to be this messed up guy, Alfred is the one person who can keep him in line.
Yeah.
Right? He actually commands that respect from him now.
Mhm.
The fact that, especially as time goes on, they focus more and more on his having been an MI6. And I kind of like the idea, even though I haven't seen it utilized yet, that he could actually have been the one to help train him in some ways. Right? That he's not just the simple old butler, that he can actually pick up a shotgun himself and say, I assure you I have no such misgivings,
They go so overboard with that in Absolute Batman, though. Ugh.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of iterations where he's like basically not the proper butler at all. He's just a military guy who hangs around with Batman.
Yeah, they lean so far to that he just becomes Rambo at a certain point.
That's the recent, basically how he's been for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
I love this scene.
Pennyworth. There's an Alfred Pennyworth miniseries, and the first 3 issues, they're Alfred as an MI6 agent, right? And then there's a framing sequence, a story in the past and a story in the present, and it's really, really great up until like issue 4, and then the entire story falls apart, and it just becomes a real slog. I do not recommend reading it, but man,
let's do a show talking about Alfred. Let's do a show talking about Alfred.
Yes,
I will bring up the Batman. What's it called? It's sort of Bat Family. I forget what the title actually is, but the Scott Beatty story that I like so much. I will contribute that one. You guys pick your favorite Alfred story.
No, my favorite Alfred story. We'll put that in the rotation.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if I have one. I'll have to think about that.
It's not going to be easy.
This way we can get on with this story.
Oh, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
that's fair.
Okay.
Good point.
This is Jurgens doing a story and pencil art, and Art T. Bear.
Oh, really? Art
on inks. So that's actually really interesting.
Oh, interesting.
And this is great. So the opening pages, I skimmed over this the first time because it had this thing, this note from Mannheim, the head of the Intergang from Gillespie, one of the lieutenants, and they just keep adding these little notes and stuff to it. And I just love how they keep adding stuff to kind of give you the breakdown of what's happened.
Oh wait, scroll up for a second. So if this is technically, since we were trying to figure out whose notes these are, this is Intergang's notes.
That's true. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
So all these clippings, these ripped things, are technically from what it seems to be imparting here is that it's Intergang's file.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like we've got an ARG going on in this comic.
Yes. So in one adventure together. So. We skipped past the end of the last issue where Superman and Lois go on a date. I didn't think we needed to discuss that. It's just cute. Okay.
It is.
So
I like the art in this one.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Jurgens, that right there, that Jurgens knows how to draw a Superman face.
Yeah.
Well, and and T Bear's no slouch. So like these guys together, this is just so. I love the art in this stuff here.
Well, honestly, isn't this around the time, maybe a decade earlier, I guess, but when Superman's face was kind of being established? Before, if you go back long enough or far enough, it's like everybody just kind of had the same face.
Established by who? Because you had Kurt Swan was pretty established there for a minute, and then you had Wayne Boring, who established a pretty
we're
depending on the era,
past-
there were pretty established faces for Superman.
We've gotten past the oh gosh, what's it called? The mullet phase, right? Like
No, this
No,
was
no, this is
after.
before. This is before.
Mullet is after he returned from
before?
the dead.
This is before.
Yeah.
This is
Oh, yeah.
1990. That you're talking 1992.
Well, that's actually
Or three.
three because
Three,
Yeah.
because Superman's last like a year. Okay, so yeah, 93.
yeah, to be pedantic about it.
Okay.
So
spoiler
this is-
alert, by the way.
I gotta say, I love this scene. Batman has broken into a precinct in Metropolis and broken his way down into the morgue, right? And he's investigating this dead woman who died of radiation poisoning to see if there's any connection to the radiation poisoning he already had, right? She didn't die of radiation poisoning. She'd been exposed to radiation poisoning. She died of being beaten to death, right? And this cop is like, you can't do that. That's against the law. And he's like, you gonna shoot me? No. Bye.
I like that this establishes that Metropolis cops are nicer than
Not
Gotham
corrupt,
cops.
you mean?
Because if we go, Gotham cops would have. We've seen Gotham cops do open fire. And actually, this is funny to make a joke about this, but I believe it's Batman's first appearance. The cops are shooting at him from rooftops. So like this goes all the way back to his first appearance. Cops shooting at Batman. So it's a long history.
Well, by
of
this
Gotham
point,
City.
though, that's not just them doing their job. The cops are on the take.
It's for some of them. But the Metropolis
Yeah.
cops are very much. I like this. It's a little bit of world building where it's just like
Yeah.
you establish different types of different
And
tenor
it's
for the
super
police force.
important because we're using this to like intersect like Batman's way of doing things versus Superman's way of doing things, right?
Right.
Where Batman's like proactive in this case, he's proactively looking for these connections, and if he's got to bend a few laws to do it, well, there's no harm, no foul. But for Superman's just sort of waiting for information to come to him.
Well, actually, Batman. I will say this. I'm not entirely certain if that's what's being established here. I'll just tweak on that a bit because Batman says, Superman says, "Oh, we're sneaking into LexCorp. This is kind of not the way I do things." And Batman says, "Yeah, you just you just bash down the front door," which happened in Man of Steel. So they both bend the law in a sense. There,
Right.
one of them is just more vandalism than the other. Batman's just being a ninja about it.
Yeah. So here we've got Delgado in the Crime Buster outfit, which once again I just love. I don't know why I love it so much. Maybe it's cheesy, but it's a great costume.
It is a cheesy costume. It literally has like crime with like an X through it or a line through it, where it's like, no, that's bad. Like it's. I'll be honest. I think Gangbuster is a neat character. I'm not in love with his outfit. Like I guess it's nice to establish. I will say one positive thing about it, which is it's not a great costume, and that's what makes it a decent costume, because it establishes the fact that while Batman can afford to be like on brand and fancy, Gangbuster is much more of this DIY kind of a character.
Yeah.
And
it's only one step up from Mad Dog.
Yeah. Wild Dog.
Wild Dog. Yeah,
From that.
Yep.
that's a deep cut. But
sorry, what was that, Cartoonicus?
Yeah.
I said I think I'm getting Batman well vibes.
Batman will. So the fact that it's like not a good costume is what makes it decent, I guess. But it's through irony in a sense that works.
Oh my gosh, the timing in this page. We must talk Superman. Go ahead, I'm listening. Beat alone.
Yeah.
This is where it is, where when you give Superman too many powers or too many ways to do things, eventually you start to forget some of them. Everywhere I look in modern comics, it's always being established that Superman can hear you from like across the universe. And so all Lex Luthor has to do is just say, "Hey Superman, let's talk," right?
From his jail cell. And Superman will hear it, yeah.
In this case, it's more that Bruce doesn't want to talk in front of Jose.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying Bruce could have just whispered from across the city.
Yeah, he could be he could be a building away and talk to Superman. Yeah.
That's fine. That would be ridiculous to try and draw.
It's also one of these things where like we want a two-way conversation. We want Batman to engage. We want to have this moment between that gives validation for Crime Buster's mission. that Batman gets it, and I think that's a really important moment for the story myself. So because it really sets in when we'll get into that, but I mean it sets it up there. So Cat comes on, and it's not Cat. He's attacked. Oh my gosh! It's the Shockwave who's creates.
No, it's Chiller. Chiller is disguised as her.
Right, and Chiller disguises himself as Cat, and then disguises himself as Jose.
Now wait a minute. Look at his chest.
Yeah.
That is obviously Wario.
Because this is Chiller.
Yeah.
Chiller.
Chiller. Oh my god!
And here it was. Here was the moment when I was like, really, Alfred is literally a super hero. We don't know exactly what his powers are, but
He's a super butler.
Yeah, there we go.
Somebody in the chat, I think it was Isaac, said that Alfred's actually a cosmic entity.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? Because they tried to make the evil version really big in the new 52.
Oh.
The evil version of what?
Alfred. It was actually interesting because he was kind of like, he was suave and mysterious, and he had some kind of vaguely defined magical powers, and I wish they'd done more with that. Evil Alfred from an alternate universe isn't a terrible archvillain for the Justice League to fight, but they used him to just transport the crime syndicate to the new 52, and then I think he was kind of done, and that kind of disappointed me.
That sounds stupid. Okay, moving on.
I do think it's weird that Superman and Batman meet with Alfred in an alleyway and just assume that nobody in the city sees them and says, what's happening down there? Why is that guy talking to Batman?
Again, I think that's part of Alfred's superpower.
Yeah,
that's the conceit. But anyway, so Superman has figured out not who this girl is, but like what she looks like, and you think she's connected to Lex, and Superman says she has the ring. She has to be. Okay, well, let's go investigate so we can figure out who she really is. And they break in. They have the whole conversation. We talked about that already. They're going through, and then Lex is this. I got to say, what do you guys think about this sequence? They're doing investigating. Batman's hacking the computer on site. The Lex metal crew, or whatever they call themselves, that they're going up in the modified Lex armor to go ahead and find out who's broken in.
War suits, I think.
Yeah, the War Suit group.
The War Suit crew, right.
I hate that panel. I hate that. These guys are flying down a hallway. It seems like that would be pretty in armor. I don't know. It just you're gonna hit a door at some point.
So they get through there. Batman figures out who the lady is, right? And then they leave. Right, here we go. They evacuate, and then the War Suit crews are like, "Oh my gosh, nobody is here. Well, let's get our resumes together, boys."
Yeah, because we're totally fired.
But like, here's the thing: is like, they did this to skip a big fight, but to keep the stakes up for their espionage little thing. Did you guys feel gypped that there wasn't a big armored guy fight?
I was going to say that's one of the things that I feel let down about is this as a whole. You have 3 issues, which I feel like is already a little long for the murder mystery to play out.
There's not a lot of action,
and there's almost no action. They actually skip most of it because one of the fight scenes happens off panel. Because is it Chiller? No, it's the other one.
Shockwave.
So Shockwave has a fight with Superman that you don't get to see. They just tell you about it later when they say, yeah, Superman just like instantly won and peeled his armor off him. So you didn't even need to see that.
Too bad all of that would have been really hard to draw.
So that happens a few times in the story, but I think what's interesting, and this is another thing to highlight about this 3-part story, is that although it's a Superman and Batman story, a lot of what is actually happening is development of the side cast. It fleshes out, like I said, what happened to the computer lady from Man of Steel when we rebooted this whole thing. It resolves that. It fleshes out, what's going on with Cat and Gangbuster and Morgan Edge. and several other characters who were just part of Superman's world, because this comic at the time was more about Superman's world and not just Superman.
Right.
And again, like I said, that's the kind of story that you could tell in 1990 that I don't think you can tell as easily in 2025 6. I've been reading Action Comics and Superman for a couple of years now, so I've got a couple of years of current Superman under my belt, and they just don't do this anymore. They do different things. I'm not even going to say which one's better or worse. I'm just saying that, like, it's interesting that this is very much of its time, and I don't think you really see it the same way again.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, like, I just recently finished reading, because they just recently wrapped it up, the My Hero Academia, right? And all of the leads and side characters, for the most part, are superheroes or supervillains or superheroes in study or whatever, some variation on that. But there's still a lot of downtime, and there's a lot of time where these secondary characters get their moment in the sun, right? And even in the main action, you have moments that are spread in these big fight scenes that give these side characters a chance to shine, not just from a combat perspective, but from a personality perspective. And I feel like that's some of that complex, that world building that goes into.
Let's be real. Let's be real. This was soap operas for boys back in the 90s.
It
It's totally
was
fine, but
yeah.
it was.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's like even like a lot of people that are really into professional wrestling for the same thing. You've got the drama and the action. That's all part of this,
Right?
And so, I mean, like, look at this page. This is a total Talking Heads page, but like the angles that we're going into here, where Clark and Bruce and Lex are all jockeying for physical space, right? And then you have these extreme close-ups that are in the middle of discussing these deep motivations that draw these characters in and out of each other's spheres, right? Maybe not deep, but definitely complicated. And it's just like, and all of that's expressed through this pacing, and it's engaging to read, but it's just people talking about crap,
Further developing relationships.
Yes.
Which is, and I think what's interesting is to highlight that, although, again, I think there are some moments where this is not as exciting, and that is something to say as a point of critique. There is something to say, again, for the fact that in order for some of the exciting stories to stand out, you have to have beats, you have to have breathing, you have to have that episode where it's like, hey, it's not the world's at stake. And in order for a superhero story, I think, to be to fully deliver what superheroes can deliver in storytelling, that they uniquely can do, I think it's very important to highlight the duality, the secret identity, or the secondary identity. If a superhero is a superhero all the time and doesn't have a civilian side to his or her life, you don't really have what superheroes have had since the beginning, which is the two sides. I put on this persona, this identity, to do a civic good, but I have a private life that I'm trying to keep together. I have desires, I have goals. Like I said, from day one, Superman was like, I'm going to save the world, and that is my top priority. But you know what? I think Lois is kind of cute. I really would love if she would, go out with me, but I can't go out with her as Superman. I have to find a way to her heart as Clark. And like I said, that's like day one Superman. That really set the tone for everything that comes afterwards. So it's without that, you just have actions. You just have nothing but action scenes with costumes, and you'll lose something with that. And so what I think, and you can go too far into the soap opera a bit, and this was the time when you could argue they actually went too far with this. When you see the Chris Claremont on the other side, where the soap opera just took over so hard that when Rob Liefeld and company and Jim Lee come on board, they're like, we're tired of seeing the X-Men go shopping at the mall. I want to see them do cool things because I'm a teenager. And there's an art, and Chris Claremont didn't even, he just said, you know what, it's time for someone else to play with these toys. So like, but it is interesting, if you go too far in the other direction, you will lose something. So there's something to be said about finding a good balance.
Yeah.
The irony that Marvel ended up crossing over with a soap opera.
Yeah, and I have to say this: the ongoing soap opera-ness of Superman got to be really irritating in the years after Superman came back from the dead. I was buying the book for a while after that, and it's just I realized it never concluded. It never had a. Whereas this story has an ending, and it's like this is the end of Dark Knight over Metropolis. It's like the stories just keep going and keep going, and it's like there's the A plot, B plot, C plot thing keeps cycling, and it's like there's never a point. I realize that this is the whole point of trying to keep you involved. There's never a point where the story ends, where you can say this comic is done and this is told a story within one issue of a comic. It was just a never-ending weekly installment, and it just didn't feel It didn't feel satisfying to you never feel like you finish a story. It's just there's this fight, and this thing's continuing to go on, and there's never a building to a
Ball Z.
Yeah. I have to point out one other thing about we've been talking about supporting casts and how these, have time for the supporting casts and all that. I was thinking about the Superman movie from this summer. Steve Lombard is in that movie.
Yep.
And Steve Lombard here is like it's actually a funny scene. He's broadcasting and he works for Morgan Edge, and Morgan is like, you're broadcasting a hit by my gang underneath, quit doing that. I love that scene. That was just funny. But this is before Lombard went to work for the paper. But Steve Lombard being the jock bully, Jimmy Olsen being the eager kid who wants to make it as a reporter, these all had time. These all played into it because Superman actually had a career as a reporter. And it's like when you make this movie this summer, it's like Steve Lombard's in there and Jimmy Olsen's in there, but Jimmy Olsen is not being a photographer. He is the boyfriend of Lex Luthor's girlfriend. And it's like, why it's only there to be a plot point. It's like of all the people in Metropolis, how did that happen? But and then Steve Lombard gets roped into being one of the people who goes out in the T-Mobile, and it's like none of them are doing reporting things. They're just players in the superheroics that are going on. And this is like I like it when there's time for reporting stories, for him to be a reporter investigating something.
To be fair, in the film, they I would argue that we get more of the Daily Planet cast having some than we've seen in most Superman media outside of the comics. The comics, this is what makes the comics superior. If you want to look for a reason that makes comics so good at what they can do, is the fact that because they're a serialized storytelling form and they can publish 12 times and plus more a year, you can take your time and have Lombard and Cat Grant actually be important side characters and have storylines that deal with them. I think the only other time you see anything similar to that is maybe in Smallville, the television show kind of a thing, where you can really dive in. Yeah, it's really the only other time.
Comics specifically as much as long form storytelling.
Comics can still do more. Like I said, you get even Smallville across 10 seasons tells a fraction of what 2 years of what the comics can do. It's just the nature of the fragmented the panels, how you can compress storytelling while also really telling fully developed narratives, and how fast you can crank those out. Smallville does a pretty good job for what it does in it's I think 10 seasons, but like I said, nowhere near. You just can't even come close.
In all fairness, those last 2 seasons were completely squandered.
Anyhow,
I couldn't stand that show. Sorry.
I've only watched part of the first season. I've never finished it.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor saves Clark, and I love the anxiousness of that. Also, he's got his shirt halfway undone before Lex shit. So it's just like this panel is only here for us. Apparently.
Yeah.
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 Also, it's interesting. Look at the just the imagery of Clark in black and Lex in white.
Right.
The white, the complete inversion of the black hat, white hat. We had to have been deliberate. Like, there's no way that wasn't a deliberate choice.
And so Bruce tells Lois to get out of here. Okay, moving on. They fight, they win. Bruce and Clark escape. Now, really quick, just poll the table. Lois is a redhead. What are everyone's opinions?
When she first showed up on Smallville, she was a redhead, so I have no problem with that.
No, I'm sorry. I got to go with the Golden Age, Silver Age. She should be. I always get a little. When it comes to comic book coloring for things like hair,
Also, Amy Adams.
I always give a little bit of wiggle room because, like, you know, when you're coloring, or Batman, right? Batman is often, you know, like his cape and such can look blue, but we can sometimes, I think, interpret that as black because otherwise it would just be a black void on the page. Superman's hair can sometimes be blue colored, and it's like clearly Clark doesn't have blue hair, but this is a coloring choice that allows you for it to be to visually pop on the page and not be a muddy mess. So sometimes I've always wondered, is she actually a redhead, or is this just brunette and not wanting to be muddy on the page? I don't know.
I kind of get what you're talking about. Also, I figure she just puts some color in her hair. I always figured it was a brunette who just likes to put in some red. You know, I didn't see her as a redhead. She's not like a carrot top like Jimmy Olsen
or Lana.
So,
isn't Lana supposed to be the redhead?
Yep.
I guess so. Yeah, no, she is. Yeah.
Yeah. So she needs to contrast with that because Clark already has a redhead in his life.
Isn't Lana long gone by this point?
No. But she wasn't in the book at the time, but she was a recurring character still.
Yeah,
she's
she was never really a rival for Clark's heart. She was like a sort of girlfriend. I mean, they didn't even really date in high school.
Well, she's lucky she wasn't, or she would have been incinerated like Lucy.
Lucy, what? What are you talking about?
I'm trying to remember her last name. There was another semi-girlfriend back in the day.
Oh.
And they got rid of her because it was a competition.
I don't know.
I don't remember it, but
remember that. But no, Lana was that was at this point she was married to Pete, and Pete was senator.
I don't think that's at this point.
Not yet?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think I think that's when Louise Simonson starts the 4th Superman book. Okay. I think it's a little bit after this. I'm not sure, but
could be.
Yeah, that was a whole soap opera thing, getting them together too. But the way it happened, it's just it plays out over weeks and weeks of. It's the soap opera storytelling thing that I'm talking about. So, wow, we're only through 2 books out of 3. Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Fortunately, the plot really moves forward here. So
yeah.
As long as we don't get too sidetracked. Jose is revealed to actually be the Chiller. Oh man, what a great way to end the book with it going up into this integrated.
Oh gosh, Lucy is actually Lois's sister. I didn't realize that.
That's
right. That's why I was confused.
She used to date Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, and she isn't dead, so I don't know what that was referring to.
I just love I love seeing the ads in those books because they're also an artifact of their time. Like this is NES period because you could see the Double Dragon NES ads and the Dungeons and Dragons bestiary ads. Hey nerd, you like to play RPGs? We got a new module for Dungeons and Dragons for you.
Yeah.
That was a flashback because I used to go to this skating rink and in the video game section they had there, right smack in the middle. Broadcasting itself was always Double Dragon.
Good
times. So this one, Roger Stern, I believe, and and then artist was Brett Breeding and Bob McLeod. So this one does not feature a writer artist, and I thought that was actually really interesting too, just because of how that we're doing at the time. So basically, they are.
Oh yeah, this was very funny. Scroll back up. The
Capri Sun ad?
No, all the way back. There were three.
Dick Tracy.
Nope, one more. There were three pages in a row here that had a strange feeling because Superman looks up and sees something. Right, scroll to the bottom of this page. Right, and somebody says something to him, and then you scroll down. What's going to happen? And this is what you see.
Oh, an ad.
No, it's like I'm on my way, and the
Oh,
next thing
yeah.
we're seeing this.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Anyway, Jose had jumped out the window. Meanwhile, Bruce investigates the dead woman's apartment.
Minor critique. I'll say this very fast. How Gangbuster escaped with it literally just being dumb luck was so convenient. I thought he was Chiller for a second, playing a ruse on Superman. That's how convenient it was. It was like, oh, by the way, how'd you escape the villain basically tying you up and basically killing you? And he's like, well, at the last second, my ropes broke and I got free. Isn't that convenient? And I actually had to do a double take and go, wait, Chiller is with Lois with Intergang, so it can't be him. Oh, this is just contrived.
Yeah. The way he was hanging there, it was really weird because he's like crucified with his arms apart, despite the fact that he's hanging from chains above, which he should be like this with his hands over his head. And it's like, how in the world did those chains get loose for him to get out of there? They would have had to have been broken at the source where they were held in the ceiling or something, and then he gets out. And how did he get the chains off him? I don't know. It's or ropes. I don't know. They were either ropes or chains, but
I don't remember.
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't
There's
make
been
any
a
sense at all.
couple moments like this so far that people have pointed out, and I'm assuming this is a case of the author having more plans than they were able to carry out in a short time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if those are supposed to be chains or ropes. It could be either one. Anyway. But yeah, he gets out. Plot device. We know he's safe. Gets great. It tore down the whole building. Meanwhile, Bruce is investigating the thing, right? So we'll move forward. This is interesting. So, like, one of the things about the plot is that the Intergang hit squad was sent to kill Lois and Clark for their part in it, but not to kill Cat Grant, because that would look too suspicious, right? So they've got an evil scientist to mind wipe her or to put in false memories.
You know this guy is evil because he's wearing a full-length orange business suit with black turtleneck.
That's classic villain wear.
Classic villain costume. As if, rewriting somebody's memory wasn't. It's great.
Oh, yeah, that too.
You may feel some discomfort. Yeah, no joke, man. So they're on their way, and then
there were more ads in this than either of the other two combined.
Yeah.
Did you just cut them out? It might have been just
the way they were scanned in.
It might have been the scans, yeah.
Oh.
So,
I mean, the totally legitimate way that we put it together.
So they come in. And Superman saves the day, saves Cat. Big old fight. Man, just look at all that stuff. That's just great action. Actually, this panel here, look at this thing. I love that.
So what is he hitting him with there? Is that supposed to be a tonfa?
No, it's somebody else has got a shock stick they had right here.
Yeah, it's their
one of their little energy weapons.
They're totally not dildos.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that.
That's totally the first thing that entered my mind. What?
Yeah, so they're eskrima sticks. No, they're the things. So then they got the little guy with definitely not a Mauser, but he pops him in the face with a thing. Ta-da! Air is cleared. Cat is saved. Mannheim is angry. Right. Then back to investigating Superman. Then Batman then takes Superman to the lady's apartment that he had scoped out earlier, and sure enough,
sad. Her ending is sad.
It is sad, and she didn't deserve a lick of it, right? Like I have some conflict about my feelings about her story,
right?
Yeah,
because like she just got used and abused and mistreated by the universe, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. She has a tragic end, and I don't know if enough is done to try and rectify that.
Yeah. Well, and like the thing is like they do in the denouement mention that they like Batman makes sure to like leave enough evidence for the cops to figure out who was in there. He hands him the book, the diary that was in there, and the
he says
the
you'd better
ring.
make sure you bring this, and this, so that they, don't leave any of that stuff behind for the police. Right. And yeah, I don't know how. I mean, we just assume that they left. Well, this is before DNA. I don't know. Somehow, the police are going to be able to find who broke in and killed her and were ransacking her. I guess because there's fingerprints. I guess it's fingerprints.
Well, yeah. It would have been more satisfying if Batman and Superman had actually captured the killers and done their typical deliver to the police with the evidence, as opposed to like, let me leave a few breadcrumbs.
Right. It's weird that they just like, okay, you guys can figure out this crime and go find the murderers, and that happens off panel, done by somebody else. It's a weird way to finish that story. Yeah.
That is true. Well, and there's fingerprints there. They find the keys, then go in and ransack the place. So, now also I want to point out that I think it's hilarious. I meant to mention this during the first book, but Superman builds a lead jewelry box for the kryptonite ring, and like it's the most normal thing in the world. Oh, here you go, Superman. Here's a ring. Yeah, I would not leave those or the diary here for the police to find if I were you. So, and then you have.
I thought there was some kind of explanation when he first grabbed it of how he had a compartment to put the ring in. I don't remember what the.
Yeah, he mentioned something about that in his thing, but like when he's examining it, in the Batcave is when he puts it in the lead box, and. I just like he just crafted one. He just built. He milled it with the tools in the Batcave, I guess.
Yeah, a perfect ring size, a perfect box for a ring. It looks like a ring box, except that it's lead. Yeah.
It's lead. Yeah, he's just got some bar stock down there, taking care of stuff. So here we go. Here in the denouement, and we've got these little news articles. Jury verdict edge on trial. We've got the Jane Doe identified suspects confess to let you know that's all worked out.
Yeah, it's not really satisfying.
Yeah. Then we have the Batcave's been intruded. Batman breaks down and it's Superman, and Superman says, "Listen, I want you to have this ring. I want it to be put in the hands of a man I can trust with my life," and that's the end of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and little did he know he'd end up using that to make a kryptonite bullet.
So that's the story. That's the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, I loved this. I really, really, really did.
That's probably the most fallout from this story is that Batman has kryptonite for bringing down Superman. That's been ever since. That is a part of the continuity.
And it was Superman's idea. That's one of the things I love about this is that's a Superman's idea, right?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you. You were so.
Oh, no. You're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But I do love that about it. And I think it gives a nice finality to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do understand what you were saying, Hutch, about like, well, it would be better. It would feel more satisfying if we got to watch that fight with Shocker. If we got to watch Batman actually hunt down the killer, right? That gal just seems like no justice was served. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that justifies a whole other issue to the story, right?
True. Yeah.
That's kind of my kind of thing on it, because it would be a whole nother piece.
But you think about it, all that stuff is action, which is what should be in a comic book. It's like we're going to skip the action scene here. We're going to skip the action scene here because we won't have enough room for all of our talking if we included that. And it's like that's what should be in the comic book. This would make a better 4-part story if you were adding the action that you're leaving out to try to get all this story told.
Yeah.
And I think there would be
I
it'd
guess
be more fun to watch. I mean, you've got a scene where they're hunting down the two guys who killed her and all that sort of stuff. That would be I'd like to see that.
the
Um,
annoying thing is knowing that if this were done today, it would take 6 issues. There would be 1/10 as much of story, and still there wouldn't be any more action in it.
It would probably be 12 issues.
yeah, that's true. The ending of this is kind of interesting for the time because when I remember Justice League 250 came out before the John Byrne reboot, but they had already told the editors, hey, when Superman gets rebooted, Batman's not going to be his best friend. They're not going to be the world's finest pair. They're not hanging out together anymore. Superman doesn't even like Batman. Batman doesn't really like Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had this Justice League 250. It was like the first time where Superman says, Batman ran off. I didn't expect it. I don't like him. But I'm like, what do you mean you don't like him? It was published before the John Byrne thing, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And
Was this before or after Miller?
This was before. I don't know about the whole Miller thing, but the point of the John Byrne reboot was that they were reestablishing their friendship, and they were writing this Justice League story ahead of time so that it would be in continuity with what was to come. And that threw me off. But yeah, they didn't like each other, they didn't trust each other. So this moment where, despite the fact he doesn't like Batman, he keeps saying, I don't like your methods, they still don't really get along. But this is like growth in their friendship, that he's like, okay, I may not like your methods, but I trust you that you would actually be responsible enough to take care of this. And this is the first time he sees the Batcave, by the way. Looks around at the penny and the big robot and says, hey, interesting place you got here. Yeah. So, by the way, I don't know what story it was recently. I was one of those out of context things that somebody passes around on Facebook, but there's a one pager of Green Lantern and Batman, and they're like on Dinosaur Island, and Green Lantern says something like, it's weird to see you fighting dinosaurs. It's not really your thing. He's like, I like dinosaurs. He says, Batman likes dinosaurs? He's like, I have one in my cave. He's like, oh, I never really thought about that. You're right. Batman loves dinosaurs.
Who doesn't?
So
who doesn't? That's a great question. That's a great question.
Yeah.
So like I said, I really like this story. It hit me with so many great things about the time frame it was written in, about the supporting cast being so intrinsic to it, about the building the setting, the world building to feel like this lived in combined universe. I really enjoyed this. What do you guys think though? What was your thought? Let's go with Cartoonicus. What was your thought of the track of the 3-part?
I don't know why the third one just seemed a little more boring than the other two. Maybe it was because I was trying to rush to get it done in time for the stream. I don't know. It didn't have such interesting moments like, again, Lex saving Clark's life and whatnot. As such, I don't know if it leaves an impression on me. It was good enough. It was interesting enough. I don't really have a bunch of praise for it or anything.
Good.
I've already said my part. I think I've said enough about this story and how I feel about it.
So, Twitless, what are your final thoughts?
Like I said, I don't want to repeat too much what I've said before. It's kind of a middle of the road story, but there's something remarkable about that because of it being a 90s story that I don't think you could tell today. And like I said, I read a bunch of current Superman, and it was like, oh, this is. I kind of wish we'd get more of this. I will say, I think the current run by, is it Jeff Lemire, I think, on JSA comes the closest I've seen to telling stories a little bit closer to this vein, not entirely, but just a little bit of a slower speed and having some interpersonal drama and breathing a little more a bit, or trying to.
That makes sense. Lemire was doing a lot of that same kind of stuff with the Terrifics a few years ago.
I am enjoying what I've seen, what I've read Jay say. But the ultimate thing that I think is interesting is I always like to think about this as a from a cultural standpoint. I don't want to say anthropological, but like this was a story that was told at a cultural moment in America, and I want to get off of just always complaining about, you know, oh, people write trash today, because I think that we sometimes forget that these stories are they're not, they are symptoms of the culture in which they are in, as much as they are contributors to that. And so if storytelling in superhero comics is all about right now the end of history as we know it and the end of the multiverse, reality is unraveling, I think that says a lot about how America sees things. And I think there's a good reason to say that, because back in the 90s, back in the 80s, back in these previous years before the turn of the millennium, looking forward to the future was something that, like Star Trek, there was something to look forward to. And so you didn't have quite as, there was still anxiety. I'm not saying it was all perfect, but there was still a lot of like, oh, can't wait for what comes next. And now I think one of the reasons why you see Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Verse and so many stories being about reality and history is ending is because I think people have a lot of anxieties about where they're at in our society, and have a lot of anxieties about where we're going, and don't feel like there's a lot to look forward to. And so I think storytelling, when you're in that mode, all you can do is look back to the time you felt safer, which is where all the nostalgia comes in. So I think that this is very cozy to look back at the storytelling when we were at this moment. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not trying to get too on a high horse and say, oh, today's trash, because I don't entirely believe that. What I am saying is that this is a time capsule of a story, and that makes me appreciate it even more, even if it's a kind of mid-level story. Because of how you can look back on it and look back at the time it was written and see, like I said, experience that time capsule. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people in superhero comics are reading back issues. That they often say that back issues are selling really well. People are looking back. It's harder, not impossible, but it has become more difficult to look forward. And that's, like I said, it says something about how we see our culture and how superheroes are the superhero stories that come out of that zeitgeist, the spirit of our particular moment.
If I may also point out that the average readership of superhero comics tends to get older and older. So the more of your life goes by, the more you, in general, are only able to look back instead of forward, if you get my drift. Right?
I think
there's a whole lot more that has come than is coming.
Well, and I think that probably has more to do with, honestly, I think that probably has less to do with the advancing age of the superhero comic book readership, and more to do with the number of them that don't have children. Because at least as a society, if people that have avoided having kids, they're not looking to the future for their children because they don't have them, right? But people that are building a future, whether it's directly for their kids or for their neighbors' kids or their nieces and nephews or whatever, if you're intentionally looking toward building something, then you can have that vision of a future and look at what are future generations going to do. Whereas if you're just your little unit that will live and die and not have anyone to remember you afterwards, then I don't think you necessarily have it.
I'm in that boat. Yeah.
Well, and I want to be really careful of clear with what I'm exactly.
No,
No, Same.
But your summary of what it's like is right. It's weird that there's
Well, I don't know, because like nobody here is in that boat more than me, but I love to look back on period pieces and appreciate times that are coming back.
Well, and I'm a big fan of period pieces too, as far as the genre goes. But one of the things I want to say that I'm saying too about that is, like, I mean, Hutch, you and I have talked a lot about, like, the time you've spent with your sister's family, and what that means, right?
Yeah.
And so I, I know you hope the future shapes a way that's going to make me successful. So I think that is a specific difference. And even when you talk about, like, the stories you've wanted to tell, they're in that vein of building that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But we do live in a very weird time. Like he says, I look forward to either a robot or AI taking my job. We've been talking a lot in the last few years about how, the Gen Z kids don't have hope because you're not going to be able to get a house. The corporations ran across America and grabbed all the affordable houses and turned them into apartments for rent, or have done something with them to take them off the market. The market's very hard to get a house, and with COVID and everything, all the building prices were just skyrocketing at the time. Remember all those memes of people who said, Lamborghini to trade, I've got 2x4s. No arguing, I know what I've got. There was all that time where you can't buy a house. It's still not a good time for buying a house. That's why we're stuck in Minnesota here, because we can't really afford to go build a house somewhere. And there's a lot of these kids who are like, they want to move on to the next part of their life where you get married, you get a house, you have kids, but they just got out of college, and where are the jobs? AI is taking all the jobs, and you can't afford a house. There's a lot of uneasiness of the current generation about what is the future, So,
and that's gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna ooze, even if subconsciously, consciously, it's gonna ooze out of the pores, out of all of your media. And so, like I said, I think one of the reasons why the spirit of the age is, like, history is collapsing on itself, and the superheroes have to help us stop it. Like, I think that's part of that, and it's interesting to go back to here, and it's like, let's solve a mystery, let's solve a murder mystery that only impacts two side characters that we don't really care about much. But that's okay. We could spend 3 issues doing that and still be a pretty enjoyable read, even if it was mid. So I'm like, wow, what a time capsule.
That's actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about earlier, and maybe we'll close on this because I know it's getting a little late, but one of the things I think is really interesting from kind of as a takeaway on here is that you were talking, Twitless, when we discussed the issue 1 about the function of the secret identity in this story, and how that gives Clark something else to do, and this other perspective of not just something else to do, but a different mode in which to exist. And so we get to appreciate Clark's that civilian life. And Hutch, you went on and talking about how we had if I'm remembering things right, talking about the Daily Planet being its own environment that was rich for story development, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you were talking about this, both of you guys, and one of the things that really came into my mind and really sharp relief is something that I've talked about before. This my idea of the heroism of the mundane, right? In superhero comics, the secret identities is one of those things that allows you as the reader to invest in the heroics of the character, right? It's not just a plot device or not just a difficulty for them, but Bruce in the cave being real with Tim, right? Or Dick or whoever. That's also the same way that, like, when you are in your life, you have to take on roles as the customer service guy or the whatever it is, right? We act out these different aspects of our character, and we expose different aspects of ourselves to meet the tasks of our daily life, right? Because that's the nature of human relationship in one way, but the superhero comic in some ways is a pantomime of that, where it makes where it makes it realizes that concept of multiple identity within this mytho-fictional framework, to explain the function of that. And when we have stories where we never see the downtime of the heroes, or we never see them outside of the action scenario, right?
Yeah.
Or when we were reading the Court of Owls, right? And Bruce inside the cave was every bit as hostile as Bruce outside of the cave.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
You have a situation where now there's no longer anyone to connect to, right? It's all trauma dumping all the time, instead of it being a situation where Bruce is a guy with a job, and his job is saving the day, and he when he gets off work, he cares about the people that he works with, and so that's I think that's one of the things. I think maybe it is like Twitless, like you talk about it, that being an artifact of the time of the early 90s.
I think
But
it is.
I also feel like it's comic book writers misunderstanding the assignment, because they're instead of telling immorality tales to encourage boys to be good citizens, and to explain why that matters, they're just deconstructionist trauma dumping. And not to overuse that term, but I mean that just seems to be so much of the ethos, whether it's Tom King's Wonder Woman, or whether it's anything that Snyder touches. I don't understand why he's popular.
I was gonna say this also feels like another possibly post-Miller effect, especially because Batman is like the king of this.
Yeah, I mean Miller's definitely could be an aspect in that. I was just reading a Miller Daredevil book earlier this week, that from '86. That, man, it is really good, but it's not really a Daredevil story at all.
Well, do we have any other further wrap-up thoughts?
I don't think so. I think that covers it, unless anybody wants to tell me how wrong I am, and we can talk about that for the 10 minutes.
I don't have the time this evening.
I love it. So, okay, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, I don't have a plan. I got to be honest. I thought I had one. I was wrong. But
Alfred stories?
I don't.
Or is it too soon? We need more time. Okay.
I think it's too soon unless everybody has one in mind already.
I would definitely need some more time.
I think it's got to be a February thing. So.
Okay.
As much as I like him, I can't even think of any Alfred stories.
I can try to get caught up to the Galactus story. This big collection of the Fantastic Four. It's quite hard to get into it. It just there's so many stories in it, and the Galactus is at the back of it, and so I'm trying to get it done so that we can cover it, because I know you want to do that, but I got to get caught up on Fantastic Four. So I really don't have enough time to read comic books. You know what? I spend too much time on my phone. This is why comic books aren't enticing little kids, because everybody's doing this all the time. It's like you never have time for reading comics because there's something on your phone. So.
Yes, definitely. That is a struggle, but
yeah,
we will figure it out there, faithful viewers. Thank you for tuning in. For myself and the rest of the guys, this is Reese signing off, and you guys get out there and enjoy some comics. Have a good one. Gotta hit the button.